Three. Hey, can you believe it? Wayne just told me it's the 54th episode of Wayne's World and Kelly. And we have a special guest. We have a celebrity today. So although she looks like a movie star, she only does radio and TV. And Denise, would like to welcome you to the show. And Wayne, good to see you up in the great up north.
Good to see you all. Welcome, Denise. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This looks like it's going to be a lot of fun these next 25 minutes.
Well, I trust me.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, we're doing an hour and a half today. Studies say that people can only handle about 4 minutes of anything. So
what's that?
4 minutes? Well, I guess it depends what generation they're from, actually.
Right. Good point.
That is statistically a fact. Wow, you are on top of it this morning, Denise. You're right. It's what you do. Yeah. So, before I just start rambling on like I normally do, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have a background in the regular world, but then you've transformed into this other great world. So share with us a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's a little unique, but it's actually a very good story with respect to an example. And so I'll start with where I was. My background is actually in finance. I managed money for wealthy people for almost 25 years. And when you're dealing with the financial world like that, it can be very grueling, taxing on you. And I really, towards the end, started getting very tired of doing it. And I guess the universe heard me, because at some point, I actually had to make a decision. Do I want to continue doing this? Well, in that, someone found me on LinkedIn and asked me to come and interview to be a host on a radio show, TV show that they were starting. And it was called Thumbs Up SoFlo. I said, I've never done anything like this. Never. And they said, well, we think you can do it. So I said, all right, I'll try it. I did one show and I was hooked, because all of my training was always learning about my client, profiling them and understanding and asking questions that are very sensitive and whatnot. So it became very natural for me to interview. I never knew I had this gift of being able to talk behind the mic or in front of the camera. 28 shows later, unfortunately, the show had to end because the producer had passed away. But in the meantime, this industry is very small, by the way. There's always someone looking for new talent. And so someone had was watching me the whole time, befriended me, and asked me to be on a foodie reality show called Dining Divas. So I wound up doing that. Well, I met someone else, and I started working in their movie company. And I was actually acting as their CFO because of all of my financial background, but I was also exposed to a lot of media. I was learning a lot about the industry. So I decided to move on from there. And someone asked me to come and do an interview like this at a radio station. And after that interview, they said, you need your own show. I said, really? So they asked me to come in. They threw me behind the mic for 20 minutes. It was like a Seinfeld act. I didn't know what I was saying. They asked me questions, and I just kind of like bantered and went with it. And so it turned out that here I am, and I created 152 shows.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
That is great.
And I knew nothing about media. I was a good student, right? And about learning, and I'm still learning, so much more to learn. As the technology is changing today, there's so many different nuances to making what you're doing be seen, known, followed, liked, the whole thing, right? So I did produce and write 152 shows. So they would air on Friday nights. And so the essence of the show started out with telling stories of life, inspiration, telling stories of individuals who have been from the rock bottom and how they climbed back up. I mean, I have people tell me stories, and I've actually made people cry, not intentionally. I just know how to ask questions, I guess. And I get to the nitty gritty, and I think I can relate to what people want to hear. And I got to interview the most amazing people. The show turned into being called the Sixth Borough Radio TV show. And I ran with that name during COVID because the New York Times and the Post and all them up there declared South Florida being the sixth borough. So I coined it.
I picked up on that. I like that.
That's cool.
So you interviewed Eric Estrada, is that correct?
Eric Estrada, Larry Wilcox from Chips. I've interviewed people from most likely many of the shows that you watched when you were a child.
How old do you think
Very
I am?
interesting. Sorry?
I saw that on reruns. How old do you think I am?
Oh, well.
I'm just kidding.
You probably would have seen them in the reruns. How's that?
No, trust me, I saw that all live. Oh, that was great. So what was Eric like?
Our situation was a little uncomfortable because we have a lot of remotes that would come in, because if they weren't in the studio, we had a remote them. So it was a very patchy remote feed, but he was fine. He's old. He's very old right now. When I say very old, I mean his wits are just he's just a little slower than his wittiness that we know him to be, and his charm. He doesn't like to be interviewed, by the way. He's not one of those. You would think he would want to talk about himself, because maybe just the nature of who he is and his character in life. But overall, he gave us as much as he could. How's that?
Wow. I was trying to find it, and so I need to hunt it down so I can watch it. I want to see that clip. So, or that
hey,
show.
Denise, do you find that in all the instances where you've either been around celebrities, interviewing them, or both, that the circumstances obviously of their life are different than what I'm going to call ordinary normal people? Is there a pretty good separation between the two, or do you find a certain amount of them, well, like that's the way they are all the time, or in character? You know what I'm getting at? Have you found that out in their presence?
So if you're asking, are they different from the character they portray out in the
yes. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On personas, they're taking on a character, and they study their character.
Method acting. Method acting. Yep.
They need to relate to the character. They do step into the character.
Right.
But what I have found, that no one that I've ever interviewed has never had a challenge, and that industry is brutal. It's brutal. And it's, the glitz and glamour is all there, but we do forget that these are people, and they do have their own, family problems like you and I would. There are things that
absolutely
they're normal people, and they do try to keep their privacy, but all said and done with, we don't realize that they are people. I've learned that along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a meme on Facebook, Reese. I don't know if Wayne doesn't have Facebook, Denise. So
nope, never will.
We should almost black him out for this segment.
Go ahead.
But you're missing so he's missing all the great memes. So someone wrote yesterday, do you realize Hollywood's been on strike for a month and no one's noticed?
That is funny, dude.
Yeah. There's enough content out there that we can continue without never having them write again. But yeah, I can see your point. That's actually very funny.
Do you think there's a lot of reluctant celebrities, right? I mean, so I just finished reading this book called The Ultimate Story of the Teen 80s Movie, and it talked about, a lot of stuff that we had grown up with in our formative years, everything from the Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller, and they named several actors that are just reluctant celebrities. Andrew McCarthy is one of them. He was on St. Elmo's Fire, just like not that real happy to be there and maybe embrace the other side of the celebrity persona that a lot of people expect to see from them, right? Just not really that happy to be here and kind of going through the motions. Is there anybody in particular you can think of that you would talk to or met that would fit that category?
That they were in a role in the spotlight and don't care to be anymore? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, just what I'm going to call the reluctant celebrity. Like they'll do their work, their gift for whatever it is, being a celebrity, but yet they're really not happy about it at all.
I actually met Robin Williams, and when I met him, it was very surreal because I'm a fan. I mean, back then I was really a fan, and the one thing that I could say, now we're going back some time.
Yeah.
This is before I was actually interviewing, but I had brushes with people just naturally, not asking for it. But I did meet Robin Williams, and I spent a little time with him instead of the circle that I was with. And he was one of those that I could say that reluctant. He still had his When on set, he was definitely one person that we knew him to be, but in private, offset, he was relatively quiet.
Right.
His demeanor was softer. It wasn't as loud. He was offset. He was off. When you're on, you're on. When you're off, you're off. He was himself. And I think that these celebrities, they give so much of themselves when they're on set. I mean, they give 1,000% of themselves. And we can name a whole bunch of celebrities that would have done that, anywhere from Michael Jackson to Anna Nicole Smith. I mean, all these different individuals that in private, they hit such a low because they're so used to being so high when they're on. When they hit that low, it's probably really hard to connect with.
Interesting. Okay.
Did you ever interview or meet George Palermo?
No, I haven't.
He was on a couple soap operas, and he also was on Law and Order and a bunch of other stuff. But he actually lives right up there. He's like up one floor and one condo over from me. He's a great guy, and had a great acting career, and he's got some great stories that he won't let me tell. But he was a reluctant actor. He's a really good actor. I mean, really good actor, and a super great guy. But he didn't, from what I understand, he doesn't like to do any other stuff as a celebrity. Like he would be on Page 6. He was dating somebody very famous at one point.
Right.
And so, he's on Page 6 and he didn't like it, but he did like being known as the best dressed guy in soaps. So.
Okay. I'm going to look them up.
Something Wayne and I would never get.
I want to share something interesting. So talking about reluctancy in the industry. So I actually had an opportunity to interview a lot of the characters from The Sopranos.
Oh my God. I love that show so much.
I'm going to do a real quick plug here, but there is kind of like a sequel to that, an extension called Graves End. So I'm
writing that down.
Yeah. I am too right now.
William DeMay, the writer, director, and so on. He has been in many movies, Bronx Tale and so on, all in that same line of genre. He was in The Sopranos and whatnot. Those individuals live a private life. It's almost true to form. It's really odd. They'll do their spotlight and then they back out, like just like De Niro. Not that he's part of that world, but they step in and they step right out. So that's an interesting takeaway that you should think about, because it's all of them that I've interviewed all have that same demeanor, but they're very tight within their circles. Right.
George Palermo was actually cast to be on Sopranos, and then he didn't go on. So we just tied that all together.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Yes. So you said something really interesting in the beginning about your background regarding, the inspirational stories, and then you followed up with a very good comment on, behind every person, most people that have a good story, they've had something really tough to overcome. And so in your process of interviewing these folks and drawing that out with your questions that you ask, give us an example on somebody that you can think of what they overcame to get to where they were at with their career zenith or whatever, something inspirational that they overcome. Kelly and I love this.
I actually have two stories. I can go to three stories, but the one story that I want to start with is this gentleman that I know that was a model and came from South America, raised by a single parent, made his way through school, very handsome, everything was in his favor. And he met someone that really took a liking to him by accident, and he went out to Hollywood and he started doing his thing out in Hollywood, and COVID hit. So I've known him for a couple of years because just being in the same circles, out and about. And I look up one day on the TV and there he is on the screen being interviewed because he had overcome a spinal injury. So I immediately contacted him and I said, "What happened to you?" Well, during COVID, he slipped and fell, hit his temple on a platted pot, and became paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh, God.
And I did ask the question. I don't know if anyone's ever asked this. I know it's a painful one, but I said, I'm going to ask. I said, what is that moment like where you
Good question.
I mean, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? Electricity running through your body, or what is going on? He goes, no, Denise, I thought I was still moving. And
Wow.
I was in pain. But the answer to that chemically for the body is that all the endorphins get released and you feel nothing. It's surreal. It's a surreal sensation.
Huh.
So it's almost a blessing or a gift that you go from one point of physically moving to a surreal sensation, which brings you into that you're not moving from the neck down. So P.S. he went into the hospital and it was just horrible all around, because here's his career. He's modeling, acting, I mean, just at the top of the world. And now my next question was, at any point, did you feel like you wanted just to end it? He goes, absolutely. He said, absolutely.
Jesus.
That I wanted to do that. But then his faith stepped in and his family, and he just thought, I'm going to get over this. If I can get over anything, I'm going to do this. Sure enough, 1 year to the date, he started walking.
Wow.
Through a lot of physical therapy, a lot of physical therapy, but his message was, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do this. And I picked him up to bring him to my radio station, and he was on his cane. He came out because he also had to have hip surgery on top of everything else, because the hip wore out, something along those lines. And I went to help him. He goes, no, don't touch me.
Nice.
I got this.
I put him in the car, drove to the station, and we had our interview. So now he's transitioned to being into a kind of like a love coach, a spiritual love coach. And he attributed that had he not gone through what he went through, he would not be where he is today and have the empathy and the guidance to provide and inspiration. So very big story. I mean, and his goal was to dance again as well. So he did dance in front of me. It was slow, he did a little trot back, right and left, but he did it. And that was really, and he's out there right now. Andre is his name, and he's doing great. Yeah. So that was one story. I had another one that she created something called Popera. So it's a cross between opera and pop music. Doreen Williams is her name. And her little story goes where came from a family of nothing, from Trinidad, came here to the United States, went to school, a very typical, strong, one of those hood stories type of thing. And one day she was in school, music teacher encountered with her, and she started singing and said, you have a voice. And it turned out she was afraid to tell her mother, because in their world, that was not a job. That was not going to be a career, was singing.
Yep.
Hard work. So it went on to be where she invited her mom one day to school to see a play. And the mom just thought it was a play, like, that whatever, something basic to support the school and go. And her daughter came out and started belting out opera.
Wow.
And it was, I think, and that's at that moment, she choked. And then I said, who's the one person you appreciate? Because it would be my mother for believing in me in the end. So when you hear stories like that to me, I want to do more stories like that. But those are moments that have been very, very touching for me. I have so many more, but along the way for myself personally, my journey was very long too. I went through a lot, transitioning a career, not going from one to knowing nothing about another. That takes a lot of courage. And even to this day, I'm struggling. What am I going to do? I don't want to go back into the financial world because it's not for me anymore. But I'm struggling every day in this industry. What am I going to do next? And how do I? And people say to me, oh, you should be in movies and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, but I'm not. Thank you. You know someone. It's a really, and it could be, they say they like you, but they don't. Right. It can be very deceitful.
It's even worse when they tell you they don't like you. Trust me, I've auditioned for tons of stuff, and I'm almost like it better when they go, oh, we'll call you.
Yeah.
And just not get the call. But when they go, wow, you're a character actor, but you really don't have much range. It's like, thank you.
Well, you got your niche, that's for sure. It's an interesting journey of creating all these shows. I learned a lot along the way. I actually funded these shows myself because of the fact that I believed so much in what I was doing and the stories that I was telling. And because every celebrity that's been on, or a high profile individual, any individual, my story is, what mess were you in that you want to make your message today? Give us a nugget of something to walk away with today. So
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but what mess was Denise in that she needs to share a message with us today?
Okay, so it stems from, I was married for 30 years, and it was a very tough relationship to stay in.
Oh, you got married at 10. So
Yeah. What's that?
You must have been like 10 years old then.
Yeah. But it was difficult in the sense that it was Denise that was not happy. And I'm also a cancer survivor. So when I went through that whole journey, it was at that moment that I said, I need to find the courage to find my joy. And I was in a mess. I was inside. I felt like I was, never mind physically dying, I thought I was emotionally dying, because I was just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And it takes two to fulfill each other. You just can't. I'm sorry, I know it's no one's responsibility to make you happy, but it could be an effort coming from one side, to really help. So the story ends with me in the mess that I was in my sadness, and how do I get out of this? Because I was committed to my marriage, and in the end, I actually said, no matter how hard this is going to be, I'm going to jump. I don't know where the net's going to be, but I'm just going to do this. And I've learned that the net will always be there. You'll always land on your feet in way, shape, or form, no matter how serious, how bad it is. Something will unfold, and you're going to look back and say, wow, that was tough, but I went through it.
Thank you for sharing that, Denise. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I never would ask such a direct question. I'm just shocked.
We have a vibe going. We're bonding.
Oh my goodness. So what's next?
Oh, well, when I put the show on pause, because we ran for 2 years, we're going to go into season 3, and I'm still contemplating if I want to come back with the show. But when I stopped that, I got picked up I was asked to be the host of the Pickleball News.
Nice.
So we have to keep going, because we have to talk about that a little.
Yeah. So again, you never know where you're going to go, and I tried to force anything. So I met Keith Gutterman, who owns fatpickle.com, that's a whole nother show, fatpickle.com. If you want to have something interesting to eat or to buy for someone, go check them out. But
such an inappropriate name for a show.
Fatpickle.com. No, it's actually.
Is it all about pickleball or about eating?
Well, fatpickle.com is the title sponsor to the Florida Pickleball News. Just coincidence. Yeah. So, there is a correlation, but Florida Pickleball News is new, and we are an FM live radio, and we're live every Friday between 6:30 and 7:30. We are going to be ending season 1 at the end of this month, and season 2 is starting in October, because apparently during the last quarter of this year, that's when pickleball takes kind of like its season, just like football would or anything like that. It goes into its peak for fourth quarter and the first quarter of the following year. So the show itself is modeled after a show called Pardon the Interruption. You might be aware of that show or not. It's on
ESPN. Yep.
And right. So we run the model just like that. So we have topics that we talk about anything dealing with pickleball, and actually anywhere from the beginner, the novice, so people who just want to know more about it, to all the way to those that are avid players, pros. And so I'm looking forward to actually meeting Steffi Graf and McEnroe and all them eventually, because they're coming into town to play next first quarter, January of 24. And
big
the
purse.
What's that?
A big purse.
The $1 million purse. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've heard of pickleball. I didn't really know much about it. I mean, it's like a cross between table tennis, badminton, tennis, and pickleball came to be, and actually I tried it for the first time not too long ago with the Delray Beach Pickleball Club. Almost every city has a pickleball club, just several, and it's been very interesting. And in fact, I tried it. I'm not a tennis player. I'm too short, period. I'm not a midget, please. I'm not. Not that there's anything wrong with midgets, but
not that there's anything wrong with midgets.
I'm actually afraid.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No,
right.
Seinfeld episode.
So I tried it, and I'm like, I can do this. Wow, I can actually hit it over the net, and I can see why people get hooked on it. And also see all of the benefits that it brings for almost every age group.
Right.
And it was really geared and centered around more of our mature population. It's easier on the joints, and it's like, then, the younger people getting into it. And I mean, the best player, Lee Waters is her name. Sarah Lee Waters. She is number one in the country right now. And she's 16 years old, and she's from Delray Beach.
Nice.
And yes. A lot of people from Delray Beach are actually gone pro. So, I mean, this is like another NFL, NHL, NBA. I mean, this is just a whole nother world that's coming to be. Right. And I do believe it will become an Olympic sport at some point.
I was just thinking that. I love it. Oh my God. So we were talking yesterday, and you had a story of where the name pickleball came from. And then I had one. And so I looked it up, and now there's a third one. So who the heck knows?
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of that. And I'm actually going to get off of the actual one of the founders organizations. Actually, one of them have passed away out of the three that came up with pickleball, which was actually came to be in 1965 and out of Washington, the state. And it was like a mock thing in the house in the basement somewhere. And they decided to come up with rules. And to this day, there is a debate on why pickle. And so apparently the story goes that it was, I've heard pickle the pig, pickle the dog. I don't know if any other creatures that they would have called pickle, but apparently it is a dog. And the story goes, just know that it was pickle, the dog.
Dog. My story, the dog, not the pig now?
Yep.
This is breaking news.
It is breaking news, right?
He was with the pig.
Well, you know what? Maybe the dog looked like a pig.
I let the dog out.
Yeah. There are some dogs that we can be very confused over whether or not it is a dog or not. It could be a little piglet. So,
right.
All said and done with it was dog. It was a dog, Pickles.
and there's a dog out there named Carl. I don't know if you knew about that.
No, Carl's a person. He's actually real.
But he's a dog too. So,
I suppose. I don't know. I don't know about that one. But either way, it is here to stay. And I'm excited. I really am looking forward to having this Florida Pickleball News take off. It's the only one of its kind. And we're looking to create a big community around this. And I'm really sold on this sport. I really am, because I'm really very much so impressed with, they actually have wheelchair pickleball. There is a lot of individuals that have had strokes or have some sort of disability and are playing, who have never would have thought of playing before. So this is a great movement in the sense that people are getting up and moving. And stroke victims. Yes.
Denise, you're going to be on the forefront of this. I mean, we were talking 5 minutes ago about, you were kind of wondering what the universe might hold for you in the future. I mean, pickleball is the #1 participatory sport in the United States right now. My son is 19. He plays it all the time. I haven't played it yet, but the demographics do tend to turn towards, like, the older baby boomers, and what is it, 10,000 of them retiring a day. Anyway, I would think you would be on the forefront of this. It sounds like something that you can't miss on this. You're right there right now, and it's only going to get a lot bigger.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears, because I'm hoping the same thing. They want to say, you're the face of pickleball type of thing.
For sure. That's awesome.
Now watch out for Connie Sugars out of Evans, Georgia. She's also quite the pickleball player. So I hear she's on the rise. She'd be going after that #1 spot.
Well, it's all up for grabs. And by the way, I've never known this. Some of these tournaments that are coming up, they'll actually have 59 pickleball courts going on simultaneously. So and by the way, pickleball itself is much louder in its bounce than it echoes than it would be on a tennis ball. So there's a lot of cities, of course, making space, creating more pickleball courts, right? However, there's a lot of pushback from the community, the neighbors and whatnot that are saying it's really loud.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You've heard that too? And I don't know if
so what?
I just think it's probably because people are yelling at each other more. I don't know which one it is. I'm still finding debate. Is it because people are just yelling at each other because they're excited, but there's a lot of calling out during the sport too. So it's actually, again, it's here to stay. And I'm hoping that you're right, that we are.
I am.
And I'm really hoping it does take off. I'm a little, how can I say this? I'm of a certain age group that a lot of people don't know. And so I'm running with what they said to me. So I'm hoping that you're right.
No, listen, just a thought. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. When you're doing your show and there's like some news coming up, maybe you can call it pickleball juice.
That's not bad, dude. That's not bad. That's good. I like that.
That's a pickleball.
Because now they're talking about the tea, spill the tea. So I'm going with juice.
Pickleball juice. Well, funny enough, actual pickle juice is going to be available soon on pickleball courts because it actually helps them when they're dehydrating. So
there you go. Forget water. Let's go with pickleball juice.
Yeah.
We're way over time. Holy smokes. Who's supposed to be watching the clock, people? I can't believe we got this far off on pickleball, but I love it. And
I'd like Denise to tell everybody where we can find her on social media if she feels comfortable doing that, because you got a lot going on. And pickleball in the infancy, let's tell everybody, if you want to, where people can find you.
So Denise Casale on Facebook, just like that. And then on Instagram, it's Denise Casale _. There's a big debate on that underscore, but you put the underscore, you'll find me. And then, of course, there is the Florida Pickleball News. That's all you need to plug in on all forums. And then my other show is called the Sixth Borough Radio TV Show. So those are my 3 different ways that you can find me. Just DM me, direct message me, and let's see if I can support you on the radio, on the TV. If you want me to brand something for you, I'd be happy to do that. But above all things, if you need encouragement, inspiration, I'm available too.
That's awesome. We're going to have you on again, right, Kelly? We're going to follow up with you, 6 months to a year from now and see if my prediction came true, because I know you're trending upward. So we're looking forward to following up with you again.
I think if somebody punches in pickleball when they go to DuckDuckGo, I think Denise is going to come up. How's that?
Awesome.
I'm going on a limb on that one. So,
all right.
And if you're in a pickle, call Wayne, especially for roofing needs across the country. And if
I appreciate you
in South Florida.
I need a new roof. Well, we'll have to contact you.
There we go. Look at that. Okay, guys. Thank you so much, Denise. Wayne, can't wait to get you back in Florida. I'll stop by your house later on today as I'm heading up to Orlando.
I appreciate you not doing that. Thank you. Okay.
And
all right.
I just want to make sure your place is okay.
Okay.
Everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thank you
so much. Ciao, everybody.
Ciao.
Thanks, Denise.
Be safe.